A tower of ice taller than the world's skyscrapers, hiding caves, glowing rivers, and even life itself. This isn't just an iceberg, it's a secret world drifting at sea. Stay with us because by the end, you'll never look at ice the same way again. And if you love uncovering Earth's hidden wonders, make sure to subscribe to Deep Time Earth so you don't miss what's coming next. A tower of ice, discovery of the tallest iceberg. The first glimpse of the iceberg came not from the deck of a ship, but from the cold, unblinking eyes of satellites orbiting hundreds of miles above Earth. At first, researchers studying the shifting patterns of Antarctic ice thought their instruments had glitched. On their screens appeared a shadow stretching longer and taller than anything they had ever cataloged before. It rose from the Southern Ocean like a phantom, gleaming in reflected sunlight. When the measurements were confirmed, the realization struck like lightning. This wasn't just another iceberg drifting into the sea. This was the tallest iceberg ever recorded in human history. The discovery sent ripples of astonishment through the scientific community. Reports raced across institutions, sparking urgency and wonder in equal measure. Expeditions were swiftly organized, teams of glaciologists and explorers eager to see the phenomenon with their own eyes. Months of treacherous planning followed, as ships were ready to sail into some of the most violent waters on the planet. The ocean around Antarctica is known for waves as tall as buildings and storms that can tear steel apart. Yet the pull of the iceberg was irresistible. It was to witness a new chapter in Earth's story. When the first vessel finally approached the giant, even the most seasoned sailors fell silent. Before them towered white cliffs of ice, sheer walls rising higher than skyscrapers, their faces etched with lines carved by centuries of pressure. Sunlight caught the surface and split into shards of brilliance, scattering colors across the mist. Against the backdrop of roaring winds and crashing waves, the iceberg seemed alive, breathing, groaning, cracking with deep booms that echoed like distant thunder. Each sound was a reminder of the unimaginable forces that had shaped this frozen cathedral. Scientists on board struggled to describe its immensity. One compared it to sailing beside a floating continent. Another said it felt like approaching an alien world, a place so vast and foreign it defied the boundaries of imagination. Drones were sent up to capture aerial views, and from above the scale was even more surreal. Jagged ridges ran along its spine, ridges that looked like mountain ranges on land. Crevasses opened like canyons, plunging deep into the heart of the ice. Rivers of meltwater gleamed blue against the white expanse, snaking their way toward the ocean below. Yet the true wonder was not only its height but its journey. Months earlier, this colossal slab had broken free from the edge of Antarctica in a cataclysmic fracture. Cracks had spread across the ice shelf like veins, until finally, with an earth-shaking roar, the iceberg was set adrift. Carried by powerful currents, it drifted northward, a floating giant wandering the seas. For those who followed its path, it was as though a fragment of another world had escaped its prison, slipping into ours. What amazed scientists most was the iceberg's resilience. Many icebergs shatter quickly, torn apart by storms or ground down by warmer waters. But this one held together as though defying the odds. The longer it drifted, the more mythic it became. It wasn't just ice. It was a monument to time itself, a relic formed over thousands of years from countless layers of snowfall compacted into solid crystal. Every frozen layer was a page in Earth's history, capturing bubbles of air, particles of dust, even traces of ancient climates long vanished. To drift beside it was to drift beside a frozen library of the planet's past. Cinematically, it was impossible not to be moved. Imagine standing on the deck of a ship, the wind biting at your face, waves crashing below, and above you a wall of ice so vast you can barely comprehend its limits. Imagine knowing that this towering cathedral of nature is not fixed in place but gliding silently across the ocean, carried by forces older than humankind itself. It was humbling, terrifying, and beautiful all at once. The iceberg quickly captured the public imagination as well. News outlets declared it a marvel, social media filled with images of its glittering walls and sheer cliffs, and debates stirred about what it meant for the changing climate. Some saw it as a warning, a reminder of Antarctica's fragility as warming seas pry loose ever larger chunks of ice. Others saw it as a rare gift, a chance to study something extraordinary before it inevitably dissolved into the ocean. But for the scientists who stood before it, the significance went beyond headlines. It was a confrontation with Earth's raw power, the kind of moment that lingers in memory long after the journey ends. The tallest iceberg ever recorded wasn't just a statistic, it was a living presence, a frozen leviathan drifting across the seas. Backhand index pointing right, and yet, its staggering size was only the beginning. For hidden within its towering walls lay secrets no one had expected. While its scale alone was awe-inspiring, what lies inside this iceberg is even more shocking. Caves carved by ice and time. As the towering walls of the iceberg stretch skyward, the story takes us deeper, beneath the glittering exterior, into the hidden heart of this frozen leviathan. What looks solid and impenetrable from the outside is, in truth, riddled with secret passageways. Centuries of melting and refreezing have carved out vast caves, winding tunnels and chambers so immense they could rival cathedrals. If the outer cliffs of the iceberg are its armor, then these caverns are its soul, mysterious, silent, and breathtakingly beautiful. For the first explorers who dared to enter, it was like stepping into another world. The moment their lamps flickered on, the darkness transformed into a realm of shimmering blues and ghostly light. The walls glowed with an ethereal radiance, as if they were lit from within, each surface refracting and scattering light into a kaleidoscope of hues. Some sections blazed with electric turquoise, others with soft sapphire or pale ice white. It was less like stone and more like stained glass in a cathedral, only here, every surface was alive with shifting brilliance. The tunnels twisted and turned unpredictably, some narrow enough to squeeze through, others opening suddenly into cavernous halls that swallowed sound and dwarfed the humans inside. In these great chambers, the ceiling arched high above, sculpted into sweeping domes by centuries of ice flow. Frozen stalactites hung down like chandeliers, sharp and glimmering, while pillars of ice stretched from floor to ceiling like the columns of a palace. The sheer scale left even seasoned explorers speechless. To stand there was to feel like an intruder in a kingdom built not for people, but for the ice itself. The sounds of the caves were as haunting as their sights. Every step crunched underfoot, and every movement echoed endlessly, bouncing between crystalline walls until it became disorienting. Sometimes the caves groaned with deep, resonant cracks, reminders that the iceberg was not static but alive, shifting and breathing in its own frozen rhythm. A drip of meltwater might echo like a bell. A snap in the distance could send hearts racing. It was both mesmerizing and unnerving, a constant reminder that beauty here came hand in hand with danger. Scientists, too, were captivated. Live and die. These tunnels act as natural gateways, leading deeper into the iceberg's core. By studying their shape and formation, researchers can trace the history of melting, refreezing, and stress fractures that define an iceberg's lifespan. Each curve of a wall, each drip of water, is a clue to the complex mechanics of ice. And as the planet warms, these caves offer vital insight into how quickly and how dramatically Earth's frozen giants are changing. But science alone cannot capture the feeling of being there. Explorers spoke of the caves with language usually reserved for dreams. They described walking into spaces where light fractured into rainbows, scattering across ceilings like starlight trapped in ice. They described the strange sensation of time slowing, of losing all sense of direction, of floating in an alien world far removed from the sea outside. One researcher likened it to stepping inside a crystal, as if the entire universe had condensed into walls of translucent blue. The caves also carried a weight of silence that pressed on the soul. Unlike the chaotic roar of waves and winds outside, inside the iceberg the world was hushed, as though sound itself had frozen. That silence was broken only by the explorer's own breath and the occasional creak of shifting ice, small reminders that they were guests in a place where nature set the rules. Some chambers felt sacred, almost holy, as though human presence might disturb a delicate balance. Others felt like mazes, twisting endlessly, daring intruders to lose themselves forever in the cold. From a narrative perspective, the caves established the iceberg not just as a geological marvel, but as a living character. Its caverns and tunnels aren't just voids carved by chance. They are stories etched in ice, testimonies to centuries of change, pressure, and survival. Each chamber tells of storms endured, of summers survived, of winters so cold they froze time itself into the walls. For those who experienced them, the memory of the caves lingered long after leaving. They spoke of their surreal beauty in hushed tones, as though the blue rivers of the iceberg. If the caves of this iceberg seemed like portals into another realm, what came next left even seasoned explorers at a loss for words. Deep inside the frozen heart, where silence pressed heavy and light bent into strange patterns, something extraordinary was discovered. Rivers. Not frozen streams, not solid veins of ice, but flowing rivers of liquid water, twisting and carving their way through the iceberg's immense body. The sight was surreal. Against the stark backdrop of pure white ice, the water glowed in shades of sapphire and aquamarine, brighter than any ocean, as though the rivers themselves were lit from within. When beams of light pierced through cracks above, they caught the moving water and scattered it into glistening ribbons of color, painting the walls in shifting blues. To stand there was to feel as if you had stepped onto another planet, into a world where physics and art had fused into something both breathtaking and impossible. These rivers exist because of a delicate balance. As sunlight and warmer ocean currents nibble at the iceberg's surface, the ice melts just enough for water to collect. Instead of freezing again instantly, the pressure of countless tons of ice above forces the meltwater downward, cutting winding channels through the frozen mass. Some streams are no wider than a handspan, trickling softly between translucent walls. Others roar with force, plunging downward as waterfalls that vanish into hidden chambers below. Every drop of water is reshaping the iceberg from within, carving paths that no human hand could ever reproduce. For scientists, these rivers are both a marvel and a warning. On one hand, they reveal the hidden dynamism of ice, showing how an iceberg is not a static block but a constantly evolving body, alive with movement and transformation. On the other, they highlight fragility, because as these rivers deepen and widen, they weaken the very structure that holds the iceberg together. Imagine a skyscraper riddled with hidden tunnels of water. The beauty is undeniable, but so is the risk of collapse. Even more astonishing, some of these rivers don't simply vanish into cracks. They gather into hidden lakes and pools inside the iceberg itself. In these concealed basins, the water gleams like polished glass, perfectly still yet glowing with the same ethereal blue. Explorers describe them as mirrors of the sky, reflecting the cavern ceilings above in perfect detail, creating the illusion of two worlds, one of ice, one of water, separated only by a fragile line. The rivers also play a critical role in the iceberg's journey. As water slices through its core, it alters the weight distribution and accelerates the iceberg's drift across the sea. A process that might have taken years unfolds much faster, driven by these internal currents. In a sense, the rivers are both the iceberg's lifeblood and its undoing, hastening the moment when this towering giant will fragment into smaller, less spectacular pieces. Yet for all the science, what stays with those who witness these rivers firsthand is their haunting beauty. One researcher described it as walking through a frozen cathedral, only to find stained glass windows suddenly flowing with water. Another likened it to veins of light running through the body of the earth itself, glowing pathways that hinted at secrets still unknown. Every ripple and reflection seemed to whisper of the delicate balance between creation and destruction, between wonder and loss. And it's here that the tone deepens, Because while the sight of these blue rivers is almost too beautiful to believe, they are also an unmistakable sign of change. They exist only because ice is melting at a pace never seen before in human history. To witness them is to stand at the intersection of awe and unease, marveling at a spectacle born from the very forces that threaten the iceberg's existence. The rivers remind us of nature's dual face. It can astonish, it can inspire, but it can also warn. The explorers who stood before these glowing waters often spoke of mixed emotions. They felt privileged to see something so rare, so ephemeral, knowing that few humans would ever lay eyes on such a sight. But alongside that privilege came a sobering awareness. These rivers were temporary. They would grow, they would reshape, and eventually they would help tear the iceberg apart. Beauty here was fleeting, fragile as glass, existing only for a moment in time. Backhand index pointing right transition. If rivers can carve through the very heart of ice, then what else might endure in such a place? The answer, almost unthinkable, leads us to the greatest revelation of all, the hidden mystery of life within the iceberg. A hidden ecosystem thriving in the ice. Up until now, the iceberg has seemed like a monument of silence, a cathedral of frozen stone sculpted by time, water, and weather. But here, at the heart of the story, comes the twist that changes everything. The iceberg is not lifeless. Within its caves, its rivers, and even the tiny cracks invisible from the outside, scientists have uncovered something unexpected: signs of life. At first, it seemed impossible. How could anything survive in such crushing cold, with no sunlight filtering deep inside, and no soil or oxygen-rich air to sustain it? Yet under microscopes, samples taken from the iceberg told a different story. Threads of green algae, colonies of hardy microbes, and faint traces of pigments used by living cells to protect against ultraviolet light. All revealed a hidden ecosystem thriving in this frozen giant. It is life, but not as most of us imagine it. These organisms are extremophiles, species built to endure the harshest of conditions. Just as life has learned to flourish around the boiling waters of deep-sea hydrothermal vents, or in the parched salt flats of deserts, here it has adapted to darkness, ice, and near starvation. Some microbes use the minerals trapped in the ice as energy sources. Others cling to the tiny nutrients carried in by the rivers of meltwater, forming communities where we thought no community could exist. To peer into these hidden habitats is to witness something alien. Imagine microscopic worlds lit by faint blue light, algae drifting like tiny lanterns, and microbial colonies forming slim threads across ice walls. For explorers, it was like standing on Earth yet glimpsing the biology of another planet. Every discovery hinted that our assumptions about where life can survive have been far too narrow. The parallels are profound. Scientists quickly drew comparisons between these icy ecosystems and the frozen oceans believed to exist on worlds like Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's Enceladus. If microbes can survive here, tucked away inside a drifting block of Antarctic ice, then why not in the hidden seas beneath kilometers of ice on distant moons? Suddenly, this iceberg became more than a scientific marvel. It became a model, a test case for extraterrestrial life. Each droplet of water taken from its rivers, each scrape of biofilm from its walls, became a clue to the puzzle of life's resilience in the cosmos. But even beyond the search for alien life, the revelation reshapes how we see our own planet. For centuries, icebergs were treated as symbols of emptiness. Beautiful, yes, but sterile. Now we know that even the coldest corners of Earth conceal hidden reservoirs of vitality. It is a reminder of how little we truly understand about the places we think of as barren. Explorers spoke of the discovery with reverence. One described peering into a drop of meltwater through a field microscope and seeing movement, tiny organisms swimming with flagella, alive and purposeful. Another recalled the eerie sensation of realizing that what appeared to be lifeless blue walls were, at a microbial scale, bustling neighborhoods. To them, The iceberg transformed from a frozen monument into some forces us to rethink definitions of habitability, to expand our imagination of what life looks like and where it can thrive. It whispers that the earth we walk upon is still capable of surprising us, still capable of revealing wonders that feel like science fiction. And it underscores a deeper truth. We are surrounded by mysteries hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right lens, the right question, or the right moment to be revealed. This chapter closes not on spectacle, but on wonder. The iceberg, once seen as a drifting fortress of ice, now holds within it a thriving, fragile world. Life clings to its walls, flows through its rivers, and hides in its shadows. It is a quiet reminder that the universe's most extraordinary secrets are often found in the places we least expect to look. Backhand index pointing right transition. And so, from the thrill of discovery, we arrive at the question of meaning. What does this iceberg teach us about Earth, about climate, and about the fragile future of worlds, both ours and those beyond? Lessons from a frozen giant. The story of the tallest iceberg ever recorded does not end with its discovery, nor with the stunning beauty of its caves, rivers, and hidden life. The true power of this iceberg lies in what it represents. It is not just a marvel of nature, it is also a warning. A frozen monument drifting across the sea, whispering of Earth's resilience, but also of its fragility. Every glittering wall of ice, every blue river coursing through its heart is part of a larger narrative, the story of a planet in flux. To scientists, this iceberg is more than spectacle. It is a laboratory, a natural archive carved in ice. Its layers, formed over centuries, hold records of past climates, tiny bubbles of ancient air, frozen particles of dust from long-vanished landscapes, and isotopes that speak of shifting temperatures through time. By studying these frozen pages, rays,